Okay, we have 20 people on joining us today. Again, jump inside the chat, Let me know how you feel. If you have any questions, shoot them in the chat and we'll go back through them at the end. And then at the end as well, if you go down to down to your menu down below and you see the button reactions, you can actually raise your hand with that button. I'll have time for questions at the end. So Jessica says she needs to leave early to pick up some kiddos. So send them out a replay. I'll have to do that. Trichologists are certified hair loss specialists. That is so cool. Alicia, I need to have you on my podcast. Shoot me an email and I'll get you on season 5 because that is something that people need to know. All right, here we go. Take a big deep breath because the CBC is the lab worth the price of gold. If you know how to read it right. And anybody who's on, I'm going to teach you the most simplest way, but also what so many people miss. And it doesn't matter if you're an MD, DO, DC, chiropractor, certified anything, health coach, doesn't matter. Doesn't even matter if you don't have any medical background, you can understand how to read this lab. So give me a thumbs up if you guys can all see my screen. It's blank. Okay, so this is just the whiteboard, okay? Now on the CBC, which is our regular blood test, I want to be sure that this is the CBC with what we call diff, with differential, okay? So this includes what we're going to talk about today. If you don't have it with diff, then we're missing some really big key puzzle pieces. Now, again, I want to look at and think about blood work as just puzzle pieces. The more labs, the more markers you have, the more puzzle pieces you have. And if you're missing puzzle pieces, you might be missing a big piece of your health story or even your patient's health stories. This one thing is all about this word, infections. Infections are rampant. They are the number one cause of a variety of health concerns that go missed. Why? Because infections can affect all systems of the body. So if you're thinking, well, I have hormone problems, is it hormone problems or is there an underlying infection that's destroying your endocrine system, your thyroid? You have anxiety, depression. Well, with these infections, if your body is fighting this stuff, you're going to feel two ways. One, it's going to fight until it just gives up. And you feel what we call depressed. Or the other or the other thing happens where your body's just fighting, and then it doesn't take much to send you into an anxiety attack. Okay, so inside of this CBC with differential are 5 markers that you're going to learn today. Now, I don't share this stuff on the podcast. It gets a little bit complicated, so I want you guys to learn special stuff right here, right now, because you are taking the time. You said yes to yourself and to your patients. If you are a practitioner, you get to learn what I don't just freely share. So these 5 markers, and you will see them on your labs. They're called neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, off the top of my head, eosinophils, and basophils. Okay, those are the 5 markers we're going to cover today. And again, if you just have a CBC, you won't see those markers. If you have a CBC with differential, which most of the time people do, but on occasion, they don't. This is the differential portion, these 5 markers. Now in medical school, I could have cared less about this. I didn't know anything about these 5 markers. Now that I'm trained myself so much so with these labs and functional medicine, this is gold. And if you don't have these, demand from your doctor to order them next time. Just say, hey, check that box, that CBC with differential, that's the box I want you to check. It's really that simple. Oh, but it is missed so many times. Okay. Take a big deep breath, because these are the numbers that we want to see. Okay. Want. This is a good thing. Neutrophils. If these guys are less than 60%, that's a good thing. If they are above 60%, then we're talking a bacterial infection. If it's above 60%, okay? Now let me give you an example. One of the podcast episodes you're going to hear in the near future, I talk about an individual. She's in her early 20s. She ended up in the ER because she kept passing out at home. The ER doctor gratefully, they took this lab. And then 4, 5, 6 hours down the road, they have no idea why she's passing out. Her blood sugar, her blood work is stabilizing. However, they have no idea what caused it. So they sent her home. No idea with what was the cause, right? So many people fall in these scenarios where they end up in the doctor's office and they feel like crap, but yet nobody can tell them why. You're going to learn why right here. Her lab marker, this lab marker, neutrophil count, was, I think, 86%, if I remember right. It was something astronomically high, like so high. And when she sent me these, I was like, oh, well, there's your problem. No matter what symptoms she was feeling, her body's fighting this bacterial infection. So then I start to ask her, what are your digestive symptoms like? And she says to me, oh, well, I'm constantly constipated. I have 2 bowel movements a month, basically. And as you all know, that's a big time problem. Now, bowel movements for her have led to joint pain. She's in her early 20s and she's going to a PT, physical therapy, to help with her knees because her knees hurt so much. And I told her, I said, oh, well, you're not going to need PT for much longer, because once we fix this, then 1, your digestive symptoms go away and you have regular bowel movements. And 2, your joint pain resolves. I kid you not. A week later, I get a text message from her. She says, I don't know what you're doing, but for the first time in my life, I think I'm pooping too much. And I said, well, how much is too much? I poop 2 times a day. Perfect. That's what we want to see. That's what you're going to see with this neutrophil count when it's above 60%. You're going to see diarrhea, constipation, bloating, stomach issues, even joint pains, rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, whatever the name they want to put to it. That's the first one. Then we get into the lymphocytes. Lymphocytes, if they are less than 30%, that's a good thing. Now, again, these are percentages. There's another type of marker that are absolute values, and that's a little bit different. We can talk about that later. I can send you an email about it. But these are percentage values. If it is less than 30%, that is a good thing. If it is greater than 30%, you are fighting a virus. because lymphocytes, that's their job, is they fight viruses. So if there's more of them, well, you've got a low-grade virus going on. Do I know what type of virus? No. Do I care what type of virus? No. There are thousands of them out there. Most of them are good. Some of them are bad. Some of them they get activated at greater levels than at different levels. Does that make sense? Are we following me so far? Jump in the chat. Let me know. Give me a thumbs up if this makes sense. I'm going to come over to this chat. Barbara says, yes, it makes sense. Again, if the bacterial count is too high, if it's above 60%, neutrophil count, bacterial infection. Lymphocyte count, viral infection. Marin says, yes, makes sense. Ellie, we'll get to that in just a minute. Christy, wish I would have known this earlier. I was fighting severe SIBO and neutrophils were 80%. Now you know. It's better now than late than never. And yeah, it's tied to SIBO. So if you're a practitioner and you're thinking, maybe I could take the SIBO test, maybe you can save money and just look at the neutrophil count. Okay. Now I'm going to focus on these two markers next because there's a pattern you got to know. Here's the pattern. Let me erase some of this so I have space. Now, we said 60-30, right? So I'm going to put in parentheses here, ideally 60% and 30% or less. Those numbers, 60-30, is a 2-to-1 ratio. Correct? Nod your head, give me a thumbs up in the chat. Yes, it's correct, 2-to-1 ratio. If we start to see something like 44% and 42%, that then becomes a 1-to-1 ratio. So if the neutrophil count and the lymphocyte count start matching, they start to meet up in the middle, and we see a 1-to-1 ratio, that's a ball game changer, because now we're fighting this lovely word, autoimmune. I'm going to go back to the chat. For those of you who have your video on, give me thumbs up if that makes sense. If it's a 1-to-1 ratio, we're fighting autoimmune, and then protocols change. Because now we got to go after the immune system, which ultimately is still infections, wreaking havoc on the immune system. Does that make sense? 1-to-1 ratio, autoimmune. No other ratio matters. I don't care if it's 90% and 30% and it's a 3-to-1 ratio, it doesn't matter. Okay. Now, Ellie, you had a question about if the lymphocytes are really low, what does that mean? Okay, if any number, any one of them is really low, then that means something else has got to be really high. Because at the end of this, when we get finished, it's all going to add up to 100%. So say your lymphocytes are 14, something else has to balance out because all 5 of them together have to equal 100%. And it really doesn't matter if it's really low. It's just something else is going to be high. And that's what you should focus on. Okay. We're going to keep going on the monocytes. Monocytes, the number is 7%. We want to see this less than 7%. If it's above 7%, now we're thinking again, virus. This one can be fun though, because I see if, let's say, if it gets 11% or higher, we might call it Epstein-Barr virus or mono, hence the name, monocytes. There's a little boy, he's not little, he's 17 years old, teenager in high school, falling asleep in class. Doesn't matter how much hours of sleep he gets that night. His mom wakes him up in the morning. He falls asleep on the couch getting ready for school. He falls asleep in class. Teacher start talking to mom about it. She knows something's not right, so she sends me his blood work. Again, doctor told him it was normal until it gets into my hands. His virus count, his monocyte count was at 14%. Lymphocytes were lower, neutrophils were lower. I mean, it all balanced out because the monocytes were up at 14%. So I said, well, there's your son's problem. He's fighting this virus and it's literally making his body so exhausted. He's sleeping all the time. For fun, she went back to the doctors and had him tested for Epstein-Barr virus. Sure enough, it was positive. So if it gets to be above like 11%, that's when it's strong enough to elicit a positive test. Until then, it's not going to be strong enough. It's just there, but not active enough to make that positive test result as we're trained in Western medicine. Okay. And that's really the only specific viral marker I can give you based off of this CBC. Otherwise, I just treat it. And my favorite thing for viruses is Vivi. It's a supplement from Systemic Formulas. And I literally, just before this call got on, I literally was just told it is now back in stock. And it has been out of stock for like 3 months. So grab some Vivi and grab it now if you want some antiviral supplements, whether you have this marker or lymphocyte marker, or if you're dealing with COVID. Vivi is an antiviral supplement. So if you're wondering, speaking of protocols, Vivi is my go-to for antiviral. And then with that 17-year-old boy, we did 3 per day of this at a higher, so it's a higher dosage. And then I included some DV3 because, again, he's a teenager. I want to keep it simple, but yet effective. I had him at 25,000 IUs a day of vitamin D. Less than a month later, he's back feeling great, feeling normal. And he's remaining on 1 a day. So like he remains on Vivi for one capsule per day, and then he stays on 10,000 per day on vitamin D. So that's pretty simple that anybody can do those 2 supplements, and they have a humongous effect, especially if you're dealing with any type of virus. And DV3 is back in stock too. Hallelujah, because that was out for like 3 months as well. Okay. So far, so good. Does that make sense? We've been talking about bacterial infections, viral infections. And here's the best part, sort of. There's a lot of talk about parasites. People will say if you have a pulse, you have parasites. I don't know where I stand on that, but I know that based off of these 2 markers, the eosinophils and the basophils, if they are high, then that's when I'm going to treat parasites. Here's your numbers. If the eosinophils are greater than 3%, treat parasites. If basophils are greater than 1%, treat for parasites. The other option with this is food allergies. So if you have somebody who's really struggling, not wanting to make dietary changes, and say that their eosinophil count is 4.1%, well, talk to them about it, because now with that number, it tells you there's food allergies. You can take a food sensitivity test if you want, or you can just start eliminating. If they've already eliminated all the foods and they still feel like crap, which is most of the time, by the time people get to me, that's when I go after the parasites. So that's how you know whether or not you should tackle parasites. And there you have it. The most important 5 markers inside your regular blood work. Okay. Now, before we jump into more in questions, I just want to caveat this. Don't go run to your doctor and tell them that you have a bacterial infection or a viral infection, because they're going to laugh at you. They're just not trained at it. Haley, yes, you can still use this. The numbers in Europe are absolute values, and they have a conversion on taking the absolute values and converting them into the percentages. Well, let's just do that right now, because you're going to see that worldwide and on occasion here in the States. Let me get my eraser out. This is also something I don't share. So congrats for being on this podcast, or on this call, guys. Because again, this can get messy, so I don't just talk about it. Neutrophils, 60%. Lymphocytes, 30%. Monocytes, 7%. Eosinophils, 3%. And basophils, 1%. Again, they got to add up to equal 100%. And there'll be decimal places, so that's why you're like, that adds up to 101%. Kylie, you're crazy. There's some fluctuation. Okay. If you do not see percentage markers on your lab, instead you see absolute values, here's what you do. You take this number, this percentage number, and I can't remember if it's on the top or the bottom, but let's just say it's on the top. So most of the time you'll see a neutrophil count somewhere between like 2.9. Okay. Then on the very top of that CBC is this letter, these 3 letters called the white blood cell count. You want to see that between 5 and 8, and that's pretty standard. So then you're going to take the neutrophil count and divide it by the white blood cell count, whatever that is inside those specific labs. So say in this case, let's just say it's 4.8. Pull out my calculator real quick. And that will give me 60%. I just pulled out random numbers, but I've seen so many labs now that I can do that. So if you don't see percentage values, that's what you're seeing are the absolute values, and you just have to do a little bit of math.
Okay.
So say lymphocytes are like 0.8, and then you'll divide it again by the same white blood cell count, and you'll get your percentage value, which is like 17%. Make sense? You don't have to do that much, but you have to do that on occasion. And then the same rules apply. Okay. Yes, there you go, Haley. And I know a couple others of you on this call are in Europe as well. which is so cool. We get to do that from wherever we are in the world. And everybody has labs, which is beautiful because then you can save your patients. And if you're a patient yourself or just someone who was tired, sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, now you know. Barbara, sometimes they'll fluctuate, but that's pretty high, 110%. I mean, they're typically close to 100%. So you got some infections going on if they're that high. All right. Give me in the chat how much you guys just learned about labs that you never even knew before. I mean, simply just say yes in the chat if you learned something. I want to see it blowing up. Yes, Connie. Yes, Jessica. Yes, Sinclair. Yes, Haley. Yes, Alicia. Yes, Christy. Yes, Allie. Yes, Marin. Yes, Barbara. Yes. This is what I like to see. Now, this is what I do. This is what I love. My mom's a teacher, and she laughs at me because I was like, I'm never going to become a teacher. And she's like, yes, you are a teacher. You just teach different things to adults. So I love it. I'm so glad you guys all joined us on. Who would like to keep learning more? Show me up in the chat. What if we took the same concept and we did the CBC, the metabolic panel, the lipid panel, the thyroid panel? I mean, every lab test that we could get, right? I do it all inside 2 places. The first place is for you practitioners. It's called the BTD Mastermind, Beyond the Diagnosis Mastermind. Okay. I'll shoot up the link right here. Go check it out because I literally just finished creating the lab course. It's $500, $495. And I will teach you every single lab just like we just did. Or you can join on the live calls where we do more of this. And we even bring in patient cases. And I help you walk through the patient cases, plus give you protocols, plus the whole jam. Okay, so cool. We go live every Tuesdays, every first and third Tuesday of the month, if you want to join on that route. So go check it out, btdmastermind.com. That's for practitioners. For anybody who wants to just learn how to read their labs and stop relying on other doctors, plus get supplement discounts and a whole bunch of other good stuff, we have the brand new Beyond the Diagnosis Academy. Okay. That one is now, you can find it at my website. But inside the Academy, we too go live twice a month. And our calls this year are literally going to be just like this, where we're going to talk about the metabolic panel the next time, and the lipid panel, and the thyroid panel, and vitamin D, and blood sugar, and all of these labs that we already have. Now we can just get real answers. And then once you have the answers, you don't have to rely on anybody else to get yourself better. Those live calls happen on the first and third Wednesday of every month. So this is the replacement of this call. So come join us on the next call in 2 weeks. Check it out at drkellyburton.com/academy. That is for anybody who wants to learn how to read labs. You don't even have to have a medical background. So who would love to rock labs and to be able to read them yourself? Get up in the chat. Let me know. Alicia, yes. Ellie, yes. Whew. Connie, yes. I feel like some of you guys are in my mastermind. This is awesome. Marin, wouldn't that be nice? Christy, I'm looking at my trends and that were wrong. That was what was, I'm finding so many things that were wrong. Oh my gosh, I love that. Trends. People always ask me what labs I want to see. I want to see them all. Labs from 10 years back, labs from 5 years back, labs from last month. You don't even have to have the lab, recent labs. If you were sick 10 years ago, let's figure out your mastermind. I'm reading the chat at the same time. Let's figure out how you felt 10 years ago. Because here's the thing. Let me show you. And if you're a practitioner, I mean, this is so cool. When you get learning these numbers and you can start pinpointing how people feel, and then it's like you're telling their future, or you're telling them how they felt or feel without them telling you. You'll go back and you'll see the labs and you'll say, oh my gosh, that lab, the time I took that blood test, my lymphocyte count was at 44%. My neutrophil count was at 47%. I could barely function that day. Of course you could barely function. I see it right there. Your body's under duress. It's fighting. And when you're an autoimmune with a viral driven factor, because the lymphocyte count is high, that's where I think viral is the pinpoint for the autoimmune. There's a reason why you felt crappy that day. But then the next lab test, oh, your lymphocytes were at 31%, your neutrophils were at 62%. You probably felt okay. How do you know that? It's just right here in the numbers. You just got to look back far enough. And as you guys start, practitioners especially, as you start learning and you start doing more and more of this, one, people are not going to tell you no, because numbers never lie. And two, you are going to be like the expert. My lab work from a year ago was up. My white blood cell count was up and my neutrophil was 73%. I had no idea. Jessica, now you know. This is how this works. It's so awesome. And then when you take care of what's happening inside your labs and you get rid of these infections, symptoms just start to go away and resolve. So you don't have to take this supplement for that and this supplement for that and this medication for that kind of thing. So check those two options out and let's get into some questions. Practitioners, btdmastermind.com. Anybody else, go to drkylieburton.com/academy and let's continue this so you can become the master of your own labs. All right, do we have any questions? Shoot your question up in the chat, or if you get down below in the reaction button, you can actually raise your hand and I can pinpoint you and you can verbally ask your question if you would like. Hope, is the CBC with differential a lab test, the one you recommend us asking our doctor to order? Yes. In fact, if you have a doctor's appointment tomorrow, Hope, this is what I would, anybody who wants to know what they should order from their labs, this is the list. If you're a practitioner, this is what you should be ordering. CBC with differential. And again, these are all standard lab tests. All they have to do is check the box. Standard blood tests that your insurance should pay for. So we have the CBC with diff, the metabolic panel, a lipid panel, and one that doctors will fight me on, and I just don't understand it, but it's how they were trained, is the iron panel. And they'll say, well, the CBC looks fine. I don't care if the CBC looks fine. It can miss some hidden things. So just run the iron panel. Vitamin D, blood glucose, and A1C. Let's see, CBC, metabolic panel, lipid panel, thyroid panel. And with the thyroid panel, I would include, the TSH, free T4 and free T3, and then the TPO and TG antibodies at a minimum. Okay, that's what you should be asking in regards to your thyroid. And then any additional hormones you want, like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, all that stuff. But this is your core. Again, regular blood work. Just tell your doctor and be belligerent. Sometimes it takes you to stand your ground and literally ask, say, I want the full thing done. Because if you're missing, say they don't take an iron panel, those are just simple puzzle pieces that now you're missing. Or they're like, your cholesterol and your triglycerides are fine. Well, that's really an underlying factor for inflammation. So get it. Okay, CBC with differential, metabolic panel, lipid panel, iron panel, thyroid panel, vitamin D, blood glucose, A1C, and then any additional hormones you want. HSCRP is another good one. Yeah, I would definitely add that one in as well. That's literally a inflammation marker. All right, let me go back through the chat and get your questions here. What about reverse T3? Yes, Ellie, like I said, a bare minimum for that thyroid panel. Reversed T3, I think is what you meant to say, is for metabolism. So if you're having a hard time losing weight, get that reverse T3 because it is a big portion of your metabolic speed. If neutrophils are high, meaning bacterial infection, is the gut usually to blame? Typically, yes, Maren, they will typically have digestive symptoms that lead down the road of SIBO. However, the other thing I often find with high neutrophil count is that they have joint pain galore, generalized joint pain. So then you would just treat the bacterial infection like you would treat SIBO. And with that too, Maren, is whenever I treat SIBO or any type of bacterial infection, I always pair it with fungal. As you notice in those 5 markers, I can't determine fungal, but because of the co-infections, I'm just going to treat it anyways. Lymphocytes at 35.7. 35.7 isn't too high, Robin. You could do some Vivi and some antiviral stuff with vitamin D. And the reason why I say that is because 95% of Hashimoto's is triggered by a virus. So if you were to go back and look in your labs, especially when the Hashimoto's was onset, you'd probably find that your viral counts are a little bit higher. Haley, yes, we go through every single lab inside the mastermind. There's also a program inside there that will walk you through every single lab already. It's ready to rock and roll. So you can become the master at labs tomorrow if you want. But yeah, we go through every labs. You bring in your cases on the live calls and we'll go through the cases and all sorts of good stuff. There's even a program with all my protocols inside of it. You can just print and download and utilize them tomorrow if you want. Can you treat bacterial infections at the same time as parasitic infections? Depends on the route you're taking. I know the route that you are taking, I would say no, because cell core is intensive. However, if you are doing the VRM route, you could do both at the same time. It's just it's a lot for your body to handle either way. You're willing to give someone quick symptoms of each marker. Alicia, it works this way in some instances with markers, but in most of the time, I think about lab markers as just puzzle pieces. And as you can clear out all of the underlying stuff that's going on inside the body, then the symptoms just start to resolve. For example, I had a patient who had frozen shoulder syndrome. Like she's 31 years old, woke up in the morning, couldn't move her shoulder. And they did everything known to mankind to attack the shoulder. Nothing was working. And so I looked into her CBC, of course, when they sent it over. And again, her neutrophil count was astronomical. It was like 89%, 91%, or something crazy like that. We treated the bacterial infection, her shoulder pain's gone, and she can move her shoulder just fine. So it really depends on the scenario, on how it hits people. Okay. I have 10 client labs I need to go over right now this evening. Yes, you are about to knock those clients off their socks, out of their socks. Eosinophil count is 7%. So most likely food sensitivity or parasites. Other markers are less than the percentages you gave. Yes. So Barbara, again, if they're less, that's okay. That's a good thing, because it's all going to fluctuate depending on that 100% marker. So since you have high eosinophil count, I would say yes, food sensitivities. If you've already cut out the big culprits like dairy, gluten, soy, sugar, eggs, then go after parasites, or do both. And you can cut out the foods for, say 21 days. Because let's be honest, if you were to tell me that I can't eat gluten for the rest of my life, no, that's not happening. I don't eat much of it, but I do like occasionally some rolls and things like that. So just cut it out for a short time period, let your body reset, and then see how you feel. But yes, the eosinophils would be food sensitivity first, parasites next. Are there gut protocols in the course? Yes, Susie. In fact, they are the exact protocols I use with the specific in lab markers. So you have the bacterial, the viral labs, the parasitic labs, and a whole host of other ones, PCOS, endometriosis, gut rehab. Once you destroy, you got to build this gut back in it. It's all there. Anything I use, it's all there. Hope when you ask about the thyroid panel, just tell them what you want to have in it. TSH, free T4, free T3, TPO and TG antibodies, plus reverse T3. So just have that in your list, because the thyroid panel itself is different depending on any ordering physician, what they include in that panel. So just tell them what to include. Robin, my vitamin D levels are very low, and I have fungus in my body. What fungus supplements do you recommend? So first, Robin, jack up that vitamin D. Grab yourself some DV3 and do like 25,000 IUs per day for the first month. Then the second month, 20,000 per day. Third month, 15,000, and then maintain at 10,000, because that's going to help your body fight off the fungus. And then inside your toenails and fingernails, there's a supplement called the Fung DX. And I will type that out so people can see. Fung DX is from Systemic Formulas. They have a liquid version of that. So what I would do is use the liquid and apply it topically right over your fingernails and your toenails. And that is an antifungal that will drastically help. 50,000 IUs of vitamin D, that's typically a 1 time per week dosage. And that's a great place to start. I would do that 2 or 3 times per week. If you have that prescription, they told me every day, that's fine. Do it every day. I love that. I love a doctor not terrified of vitamin D. Hallelujah. Yes, Haley, they do ship to Europe. But in addition, if you don't use Systemic Formulas, I have comparison guides to brands like Standard Process, Cellcore, Metagenics, and other companies. So if you see something that I use from Systemic Formulas, you can immediately compare that to another company and utilize those as well. So it's not just SF protocols. That's a great question. But yeah, they do ship to Europe. When do you start reducing your hormone replacements? I would do it when you get to the hormone section. Typically, when I'm creating treatment plans, they go on phases. And when you get to that hormone phase, that's when you can start reducing your hormone replacement therapy. The liquid, okay, that's a good point. Kelly, is that you? Because you're using my name, it's confusing me. Okay, Kelly, my assistant's on this call, awesome. She's right. So the FungDX in liquid is called CX4. And you might find that different on the website. And if you want to order these from the website, here it is. All right, you guys, I love these questions. I love that you attended this today. I hope you learned so much about just those 5 simple markers that are going to be a game changer for you and your own health, but also for you guys in your practices as well. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me over an email. Check out the Academy, check out the Mastermind, and I hope to see you all on our next call inside either one of those. Oh, that's so dumb. Toki, I'm gonna talk to them about that because that's stupid. That I know I ship Systemic Formula supplements to Europe, so you can go through me if you need to. Okay, and then as far as recording, here's what I think I'm gonna do. Good crap. I'm gonna upload this video to YouTube and make it a private link so that way you guys have really easy access to it. And no, that link will probably be good for the next few days. And I will take it down next week just because I want to say thank you guys for joining me live today. But also, yes, you will get access to the recording for a short time period. And then spread the message. We will be doing this again at the end of the month for free in a 3-day live challenge where we get into a few more different labs and a few more different markers. So tell people to go grab their free blood work cheat guide. If you haven't yet, go grab it. Whether you're a practitioner or just anybody who wants to learn how to read labs. I have that blood work cheat guide, and that will be a great place for you to start. And then if they're inside my email list, they'll get access to the calls when they're free. The calls that happen every first and third week, they happen inside the Academy and they happen inside the Mastermind. So Connie, thanks. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining, Susie, Toki, everybody who's on the call. Thank you guys so much. And maybe we'll do this again next week. I'm going to think about that, but I just want to teach and I want people to learn how to read their own labs. So I'm going to teach it. Yes, Ellie, that's it. Yep. Have a great day, ladies and gentlemen. If you're on here, I will upload this again to YouTube and I'll send you out the link. Yeah, Connie, don't tell my mom. See you guys.